All right, let's talk about Ron DeSantis and the book banning fiasco. Um, this one's a little bit complicated. I'll be honest. I have read a couple headlines and a couple stories, and in researching it lately, it's a lot of kind of he's saying this, the opposition is saying this. As far as the content of what books they are banning, right? He's saying it's very much sexually explicit material. I was just on his website actually checking his criteria. A lot of the criticism is that he is not going to allow teaching that had DIE, diversity, equality, inclusion, and things related to critical race theory. And it seems that he is pushing back. That he says that we're still teaching a lot about slavery and Jim Crow laws. The specifics, I don't know, and I think it's going to have to net out as far as what things are being banned. But what I can determine, at least from everything I've seen, is that the scale at which he is banning books and the lack of specificity around which books are banned is truly alarming. And so there's a website that actually tracks book bannings, and Florida and Texas lead the country by far as number of books banned. And my understanding of the process is before that they would ban individual books. You think about a library. The library is not the internet. There's not infinite amount of books at public school libraries. So it's fairly easy to say, hey, we find this book to be problematic. We don't want kids reading it. And that's kind of how a lot of the book ban lists previously happened. Because again, banning books in public school systems has existed many decades before this situation. But again, what I find really alarming is the language is intentionally very open ended. And it seems like while DeSantis is saying, my critics are not honest, and it does seem there's some hyperbole to the extent that he is trying to erase civil rights and black history. It doesn't seem like that's the case. It certainly seems like he is very politicized in what things he's willing to ban as far as what's considered graphic, pornographic. I think that there was a lot of the incidents of sexual content in a book as it related to LGBT narratives was much higher. Again, I'm not going to be able to go through every single book, and I'm not going to be able to be an expert on verifying what he said is accurate or what the critics said is accurate. What is facts is the pace at which Florida is banning books is extremely high. And the language with which the books are being banned is incredibly broad. So forgetting what the specifics on intent are, the end result is that he's giving himself a tremendous amount of power to determine what's appropriate for kids to learn. And some might argue that's the place of the governor. I think most people would say it's not. I think that you look at statistics on attitudes for education, most people like a very localized teaching of what their kids are allowed to learn and what they should learn. And I think that there are obviously standards around quality for more objective things like math and reading comprehension. But I think it's definitely dangerous to have one person have such discretion over something as big as books. I think we have separation of government for a specific reason. I think superintendents exist for a reason. I think we have school boards that typically are independent organizations that we are able to vote on for a reason. And it feels very, very dangerous to me that one person is able to give himself so much discretion over what is appropriate and what's not. And this is not just public schools, this is public universities, very high level institutions, not kids, adults who can discern complex topics, who should be people talking about the very subjects that even DeSantis owns up to banning, which is, again, material around critical race theory, material around sexuality. Are college kids not allowed? I read Giovanni's Room in college, one of my favorite books ever by James Baldwin. It's tremendously, I wouldn't say tremendously sexual, but it's a love novel about his gay lover, where there is certainly graphic detail. Is that a book that's not allowed? The whole point of discretion, I think that word really needs to be incorporated back into the lexicon, because right now on both sides, I'll be honest, there is this tremendous amount of absolutism around what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. And that's not how society works. That's not how language works. That's not how communication works. There is nuance, and with nuance comes discretion, right? That word means someone who is qualified making the calls on those small differences, right? And I think that to take away discretion from universities, high schools, all these areas indiscriminately, I don't see the benefit. I really don't. I'm someone, I think that I'm able to look at a lot of situations and say, okay, what is the benefit and what's the trade-off if we're going to kind of look at the policy here. And I would argue the benefit is control. I don't see any other benefit. If you do, please let me know, because I'll admit my leanings. I always do, and so I'm against it, but I'm willing to entertain a sensible argument on what possibly could be the benefit. But I don't see any benefit outside of social control. We don't want our kids to learn this or that. It's I don't buy the arguments that kids are going to be hypersexualized in a library. I think that you look at the internet and the smartphones and what kids have access to with TikTok and a basic Google search. And DeSantis is arguing that a library book is where kids are going to get sexualized, where they're going to get radicalized. And I think that it takes a credit away from a lot of teachers. It takes credit away from a lot of broader education institutions like colleges, that they can't decide for themselves which educational. And it's kind of saying one man and one administration is all of a sudden now responsible for all of this. And I don't see how that plays out well in the long run. I really don't. And this would be even if I think that I honestly, I speak up a lot about censorship from the left. I think right now the pro-censorship movement has gotten alarming on both sides. And I really don't often / ever see the benefit to trying to eliminate or silence different voices, different schools of thought. And as far as I can tell, everywhere I've dissected it, it seems very, very problematic. If you know more about this topic than me, if there's something I should read or detail I got wrong, please comment. I'm always happy to do research and follow-ups. I'm always trying to learn. I think a big part of why I started doing this vlog is that I feel like there's a real lack of discussion, complex discussion, nuanced understanding in what I'm seeing in the media. So I'm always looking to challenge myself, but I'd love for anyone watching this to help challenge me. But I really, it's something I've been seeing about, and the more I read about it, the more I feel very uncomfortable with the situation. So please let me know your thoughts and anything else I should know.